The ocean's depths had long kept their secrets, but on this day, they were about to give up one of their most closely guarded mysteries. Dr. Elena Vasquez, leading an international team of marine archaeologists and oceanographers, stood on the deck of the research vessel Horizon, her eyes fixed on the sonar display. For weeks, they had been mapping a remote section of the North Atlantic, following whispers of Cold War-era wrecks that had never been found. "We've got something," shouted Marco, the sonar technician. His voice cracked with excitement, breaking the tense silence that had fallen over the bridge. Elena rushed to his side, her heart pounding. The sonar image was unmistakable, the sleek, elongated shape of a submarine, resting on its side in the murky depths nearly 1,000 meters below. "My God," she whispered, "could it be?" For years, rumors had circulated about a missing Soviet submarine, the K-219, which had vanished without a trace during the height of the Cold War. Its disappearance had been the subject of countless conspiracy theories and fruitless searches. Now, it seemed, they might have stumbled upon the answer to a decades-old mystery. As the team scrambled to deploy their ROVs, remotely operated vehicles, Elena couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the brink of something monumental. The underwater cameras confirmed what the sonar had hinted at. This was indeed a Soviet Yankee-class submarine, its hull corroded but largely intact. "Look there," cried out Dr. James Wilson, the team's historian. He pointed to a section of the hull where faded Cyrillic letters were barely visible. K219. It's her. The excitement on board was palpable, but it was tinged with a sense of reverence. This wasn't just a scientific discovery, it was a tomb, the final resting place of over 100 sailors who had perished in the cold, dark waters of the Atlantic. As the ROVs carefully maneuvered around the wreck, cataloging every detail, a glint of metal caught Elena's eye. "Zoom in on that," she instructed the ROV operator. As the camera focused, they could see a small, metallic box wedged in a crevice near what would have been the captain's quarters. With painstaking precision, the ROV's mechanical arm reached out and gently extracted the box. As it was brought to the surface, Elena felt a shiver run down her spine. Whatever was inside this box had been sealed away for decades, waiting to tell its story. With gloved hands, she carefully opened the waterproof container. Inside, protected from the ocean's corrosive touch, was a leather-bound book, a diary. The name embossed on the cover made her gasp. Admiral Yuri Nikolaevich Smirnov. "The Fleet Admiral?" James exclaimed, peering over her shoulder. He wasn't supposed to be on board for that mission. What was he doing here? As Elena gently opened the diary, a slip of paper fell out. On it, in hurried handwriting, were words that would change everything. "To whoever finds this, the truth must be told. The world must know what really happened. May God forgive us for what we were ordered to do." Elena looked up at her team, their faces a mix of excitement and apprehension. "I think," she said slowly, "we've just stumbled onto something much bigger than a lost submarine. This could rewrite history." As the sun set over the Atlantic, casting long shadows across the deck of the Horizon, Elena knew that their real work was just beginning. The diary in her hands held secrets that had been buried for decades, secrets that some would kill to keep hidden and others would die to reveal. The discovery of the K-219 was just the beginning. The true depths of this Cold War mystery were yet to be plumbed, and Elena had a feeling that the answers they sought might be more dangerous than anyone could have imagined. The following weeks were a blur of activity as the recovery operation swung into full gear. The world's media descended upon the nearest port, clamoring for information about this sensational find. Military observers from several nations arrived, their presence a stark reminder of the geopolitical implications of the discovery. Elena and her team worked tirelessly, coordinating with naval salvage experts to carefully raise the K-219 from its watery grave. Every step was fraught with danger. The submarine's reactor, though long dormant, still posed potential risks, and there was always the possibility of unexploded ordnance. As massive floating cranes slowly lifted the submarine, Elena couldn't help but feel a sense of awe. This vessel, once a silent predator lurking beneath the waves, now hung suspended between sea and sky, its secrets about to be exposed to the light of day for the first time in decades. But it was Admiral Smirnov's diary that consumed Elena's thoughts. Each night, after long days overseeing the recovery, she pored over its pages, piecing together the puzzle of the K-219's final mission. The Admiral's elegant handwriting told a tale of mounting tension and moral conflict. October 3rd, 1986, we have received our final orders. The mission is set to commence in 48 hours. I cannot shake the feeling that we are pawns in a game far larger than any of us realize. The captain and crew believe we are on a routine patrol, but I alone know the true nature of our task. May God have mercy on our souls for what we are about to do. Elena found herself transported back to those tense days of the Cold War, seeing events unfold through the Admiral's eyes. The diary painted a vivid picture of life aboard the submarine, the claustrophobic quarters, the constant hum of machinery, the unspoken fear that permeated every interaction. As the recovery progressed, so too did Elena's reading of the diary. She learned of the mounting pressure from Moscow, of coded messages that hinted at an operation that went far beyond normal military protocols. The Admiral's entries became increasingly agitated, reflecting his growing unease with the mission. October 7th, 1986, we are now in position. The crew is on edge, sensing that something is not right. Captain Britanov has begun to ask questions that I cannot answer. How long can I keep the truth from him? From all of them? The weight of the secret is becoming unbearable. Parallel to her nighttime readings, Elena oversaw the painstaking process of opening the submarine during the day. Each compartment revealed new clues, logbooks, personal effects, and technical manuals. But it was in the captain's quarters that they made another startling discovery. Hidden behind a loose panel, they found a small safe. Inside was a set of sealed orders, marked with the highest level of classification. Elena's hands trembled as she opened the envelope, its seal unbroken after all these years. The orders confirmed the Admiral's worst fears. The K-219 had been sent on a mission designed to provoke a confrontation with American forces. It was to simulate an attack run, coming dangerously close to the U.S. coast before veering away at the last moment. The goal, chillingly stated in bureaucratic language, was to test American response times and potentially create an incident that could be used as a pretext for escalating tensions. As Elena read the orders, she felt a chill run down her spine. The diary's warnings suddenly took on a new, terrifying significance. They had uncovered not just a sunken submarine, but evidence of a plot that could have plunged the world into nuclear war. The recovery of the K-219 was nearing its completion, but Elena knew that the real challenges lay ahead. The information they had uncovered was explosive in more ways than one. As she watched the submarine being carefully maneuvered onto a specially designed transport ship, Elena wondered how many more secrets the K-219 still held, and how many of those secrets the world was ready to hear. As the recovery operation entered its final stages, Elena found herself increasingly consumed by Admiral Smirnov's diary. The Admiral's writings had taken on a frantic quality, his elegant script giving way to hurried scrawls as the K-219's mission progressed. It was clear that the weight of his knowledge was becoming unbearable. October 10th, 1986, I can no longer remain silent. Today, I confronted Captain Britanov with the true nature of our mission. The look of horror on his face mirrored my own inner turmoil. We are not just sailors following orders. We have become unwitting accomplices in a game of nuclear chicken. The madmen in Moscow are using us as bait, hoping to provoke the Americans into a first strike. Do they not realize the catastrophic consequences of their actions? Elena's team had set up a secure facility on shore to analyze the wealth of documents and materials recovered from the submarine. As she shared the contents of the diary with her closest colleagues, a picture began to emerge of a mission that had spiraled far beyond its original parameters. The Admiral's warnings became increasingly explicit as the days wore on. He spoke of heated arguments with the political officer aboard, a true believer in the cause who saw their mission as a necessary step in asserting Soviet dominance. Smirnov's entries revealed a man torn between his duty to his country and his moral obligation to prevent a potential global catastrophe. October 12, 1986. I fear we may be past the point of no return. Our proximity to the American coast has not gone unnoticed. We detected U.S. anti-submarine aircraft several hours ago, and there are indications of enemy submarines in the area. The crew is on edge, unaware of the full scope of the danger we face. I have tried to subtly sabotage our more provocative maneuvers, but the political officer watches me like a hawk. If he suspects my true intentions, I have no doubt he would not hesitate to relieve me of command, or worse. As Elena delved deeper into the Admiral's account, she found herself grappling with the moral complexities of the situation. Smirnov had been placed in an impossible position, forced to choose between following orders that could lead to global annihilation and committing what would amount to treason in the eyes of his government. The diary also hinted at even darker forces at play. Smirnov made cryptic references to factions within the Soviet leadership that seemed to be actively pushing for conflict. He spoke of intercepted communications that suggested some elements were hoping for more than just a provocation. They wanted a full-scale engagement that would give them the pretext for a preemptive nuclear strike. October 14, 1986. I can no longer stand idly by. Tonight, I will attempt to make contact with the American forces tracking us. It is a desperate gamble, but I see no other way to prevent this madness from escalating further. If I am discovered, I have no illusions about my fate. But the safety of millions must outweigh the lives of the few. May God forgive me for the choice I must make. As Elena read these words, she felt a chill run down her spine. The Admiral's final entry was dated October 15, 1986, the day before the K-219 had vanished. Whatever had transpired in those final hours remained a mystery, one that the battered hull of the submarine might never fully reveal. The implications of Smirnov's warnings were staggering. If what he had written was true, the world had come far closer to nuclear war than anyone had ever realized. The recovery of the K-219 wasn't just a historical curiosity, it was a window into a moment when humanity had teetered on the brink of annihilation. As Elena closed the diary, her mind raced with questions. How much of this information should be made public? What would be the geopolitical ramifications if the full truth came to light? And perhaps most chillingly, were there still forces at work that would prefer these secrets remain buried at the bottom of the ocean? The Admiral's warnings echoed in her mind, a voice from the past that demanded to be heard. Elena knew that the choices she and her team made in the coming days would have far-reaching consequences. The truth was a heavy burden, but one she now realized they had no choice but to bear. The tension aboard the K-219 had reached a fever pitch. Admiral Smirnov's diary, now supplemented by the ship's recovered logs and the testimonies of the few surviving family members of the crew, painted a vivid picture of those final, harrowing days beneath the waves. October 15, 1986, dawned with an eerie calm. The submarine had pushed deeper into American waters than any Soviet vessel had dared before. Captain Britanov, now fully aware of the true nature of their mission, maintained a stoic facade, but the strain was visible in the tight set of his jaw and the dark circles under his eyes. Elena read the Admiral's account with a growing sense of dread. October 15, 1986, 0600 hours. The die is cast. My attempt to contact the American forces was intercepted by our own communication officer. The political officer, Lodjanov, now watches my every move. I fear my actions may have accelerated the very crisis I sought to prevent. The crew senses the mounting tension, though they remain unaware of the full extent of our peril. As the day progressed, the situation deteriorated rapidly. The K-219 sonar operators detected multiple contacts, American submarines and surface vessels converging on their position. What had begun as a dangerous game of brinkmanship was quickly spiraling toward actual conflict. 1,400 hours. We are surrounded. Captain Britanov has ordered battle stations, though I suspect he shares my reluctance to engage. Lodjanov, however, seems almost eager for confrontation. He speaks of glory and the inevitable triumph of the Soviet system. I see only the specter of death, not just for us, but for millions of innocents who would be caught in the crossfire of a nuclear exchange. Elena's research team had managed to partially reconstruct the events of that afternoon through analysis of the submarine's instruments and comparison with declassified American naval records. The K-219 had found itself in the middle of a deadly underwater ballet, with at least 3 U.S. attack submarines maneuvering around it in ever-tightening circles. The Admiral's entries became more fragmented as the crisis deepened. 1,645 hours a near miss. One of the American subs came within mere meters of our hull. I could see the fear in the eyes of our young sonar operator as he reported the contact. For a moment, I thought Lodjanov would order us to fire. By some miracle, cooler heads prevailed. But for how long? 1830 hours, the unthinkable has happened. In the confusion, with nerves frayed to the breaking point, one of our junior officers misinterpreted a sensor reading. For a few terrifying seconds, he believed we were under attack. His hand moved toward the launch controls for our nuclear missiles. I have never moved so fast in my life, physically restraining him before he could complete the action. Lodjanov accused me of cowardice, of betraying the motherland. I no longer care about such accusations. We came within a hair's breadth of initiating Armageddon. As Elena pored over these entries, she couldn't help but shudder. The world had never known how close it had come to nuclear war on that autumn day in 1986. The history books spoke of political tensions and proxy conflicts, but the true scale of the danger had remained hidden beneath the waves. The final entries in the Admiral's diary were hurried, almost frantic. 2,200 hours. I can no longer stand by and watch this madness unfold. I have made the decision to seize control of the submarine. Captain Britanov, bless him, has agreed to support my actions. We will subdue Lodjanov and his loyalists, then surface and surrender to the American forces. It is our only hope of preventing catastrophe. If we fail, I pray that this diary survives to tell the truth of what happened here. 2,345 hours, it's all gone wrong. During our attempt to take control, there was a struggle. A stray shot hit something vital. Alarms are blaring throughout the ship. We're taking on water. The reactor, oh God, the reactor is overheating. We're diving out of control. I don't know if we can. The entry ended abruptly. Whatever had transpired in those final moments remained a mystery. But as Elena looked up from the diary, her eyes red from strain and emotion, she knew that she held in her hands an account of one of history's closest brushes with oblivion. The recovery of the K-219 had answered some questions, but it had also opened a Pandora's box of uncomfortable truths. As Elena prepared to share her findings with the world, she couldn't shake the feeling that the echoes of that long-ago crisis were still reverberating through the halls of power today. The revelation of Admiral Smirnov's diary sent shockwaves through the international community. As Elena and her team carefully released their findings, the world struggled to come to terms with how close it had come to nuclear annihilation. The story of the K-219's final mission became front-page news across the globe, sparking intense debate and soul-searching among political leaders, military strategists, and ordinary citizens alike. Elena found herself at the center of a media storm, her face appearing on news broadcasts from Moscow to Washington, D.C. She did her best to present the facts dispassionately, but the weight of the truth she carried was evident in her voice and the shadows under her eyes. What we've uncovered, she explained during a packed press conference, is evidence of a mission that went far beyond normal military operations. The K-219 was deliberately placed in a position to provoke a confrontation with American forces. The goal, as stated in classified documents we recovered, was to create an incident that could potentially escalate into a larger conflict. The reaction was immediate and intense. In Russia, there were calls for a full investigation into the decisions that led to the K-219's mission. Elderly former Soviet officials were dragged out of retirement to face hard questions about their roles in the near catastrophe. In the United States, congressional hearings were hastily convened to examine the military's response to the incident and to question why the full extent of the crisis had been kept secret for so long. But it was the human story at the heart of the drama that captured the world's imagination. Admiral Smirnov's struggle with his conscience, his desperate attempt to prevent a war, and his ultimate sacrifice resonated deeply with people across national and ideological lines. His diary became an international bestseller almost overnight, with many hailing him as an unsung hero of the Cold War. Elena watched all of this unfold with a mixture of satisfaction and apprehension. She had always believed in the importance of uncovering historical truths, but the scale of this revelation was beyond anything she had imagined. As she read the latest batch of emails from her university colleagues, a knock at her office door startled her. Dr. Vasquez? A stern-looking man in a dark suit stood in the doorway, flanked by two others. "I'm Agent Collins with the CIA. We need to speak with you about the K-219 situation." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. She had expected interest from intelligence agencies, but not this soon and not so directly. "Of course," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Please, come in." What followed was an intense debriefing that lasted for hours. The agents were particularly interested in any information that hadn't been made public yet, especially concerning the Soviet chain of command and decision-making process. Elena answered as honestly as she could, but she couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to their questions than simple fact-finding. As the session wound down, Agent Collins fixed Elena with a penetrating stare. "Dr. Vasquez, I hope you understand the sensitive nature of what you've uncovered. There are aspects of the situation that could have serious implications for current geopolitical stability if not handled carefully." Elena met his gaze unflinchingly. "I'm a historian, Agent Collins. My job is to uncover the truth, not to manage political fallout." Collins nodded slowly. "Of course, but I urge you to consider the potential consequences of full disclosure. Some truths might be better left in the past." After the agents left, Elena sat in her office, her mind racing. She knew that similar conversations were likely happening in government offices around the world. The revelations from the K-219 had the potential to reopen old wounds and inflame current tensions between nations. As she pondered her next move, Elena's eyes fell on a framed photo on her desk, a picture of her as a young girl, sitting on her grandfather's lap. He had been a veteran of World War II, and his stories of the horrors of war had inspired her to pursue a career uncovering historical truths. What would he advise her to do in this situation? With a deep breath, Elena reached for her phone. It was time to call a meeting with her research team. They had started this journey together, and together they would decide how to proceed. The truth about the K-219 had surfaced after decades in the darkness. Now, the question was, how much of that truth was the world ready to hear? In the weeks following the CIA's visit, Elena and her team found themselves at the center of a global ethical dilemma. The full contents of Admiral Smirnov's diary and the recovered Soviet documents had the potential to rewrite Cold War history and dramatically impact current international relations. The weight of this responsibility bore heavily on Elena's shoulders as she convened her team for a crucial meeting. "We have a decision to make," Elena began, her voice steady despite the tension in the room. "Do we release all of the information we've uncovered, or do we withhold certain details for the sake of, what? Political stability? National security?" The ensuing debate was heated. Dr. James Wilson, the team's historian, argued passionately for full disclosure. "We have a duty to the truth," he insisted. "Sanitizing history for the sake of political convenience goes against everything we stand for as academics." But Dr. Yuki Tanaka, their geopolitical analyst, urged caution. "The world is a powder keg right now," she warned. Revealing that the Soviets were willing to risk nuclear war for political gain could inflame tensions with Russia. And let's not forget, the American response wasn't exactly measured. There's plenty of blame to go around. As the discussion raged on, Elena's mind drifted to the contents of the diary that they hadn't yet made public. Admiral Smirnov had named names, high-ranking Soviet officials who had pushed for the provocative mission, some of whom still held positions of power in modern Russia. Even more explosive were his descriptions of back-channel communications with certain American officials who seemed disturbingly eager for a confrontation. The implications were staggering. If released, This information could topple governments, destroy careers, and potentially spark a new era of international hostility. But if they chose to keep it secret, were they any better than those who had buried the truth about the K-219 in the first place? As the sun set outside their conference room window, Elena finally held up a hand to quiet the ongoing debate. "We all became historians and researchers because we believe in the power of truth," she said softly. "But we also have a responsibility to consider the consequences of our actions." She stood, pacing the room as she continued. "I propose a compromise. We release the bulk of our findings, the details of the K-219's mission, the bravery of Admiral Smirnov and his crew, and the broader geopolitical context of the incident. But we withhold, for now, the names and specific communications that could directly endanger individuals or inflame current tensions." The room fell silent as her teammates considered the proposal. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it seemed to strike a balance between their commitment to historical truth and their desire to avoid causing unnecessary harm. "We'll also," Elena added, "include a statement with our release, making it clear that we have additional information that we're not yet sharing. We'll commit to a full disclosure at a later date, perhaps with a 10-year delay to allow for some of the more immediate political concerns to subside." Slowly, heads began to nod around the table. It wasn't an easy decision, but it felt like the right one. The next few months were a whirlwind of activity. Elena and her team worked tirelessly to prepare their findings for release, carefully crafting every statement to ensure accuracy without crossing the lines they had drawn for themselves. When the day of the announcement finally arrived, the world's response was even more intense than they had anticipated. The story of the K-219 and Admiral Smirnov's heroic actions captured the global imagination. There were calls for posthumous medals, for memorials to be built, for the incident to be included in history textbooks around the world. But there was also an undercurrent of tension, particularly between the United States and Russia, as both sides grappled with their roles in nearly instigating a nuclear war. Elena found herself besieged by interview requests, invitations to speak at conferences, and even offers to consult on a Hollywood film about the K-219 incident. Through it all, she remained committed to the truth, or at least, the portion of it that she felt safe sharing. Late one night, as she sat in her office reviewing the latest round of media coverage, Elena received an unexpected email. It was from a name she didn't recognize, but the subject line made her breath catch. "Thank you for protecting my grandfather's legacy." The email was from Admiral Smirnov's granddaughter. She wrote of how her family had always known there was more to her grandfather's story, but they had never imagined the true scope of his heroism. She thanked Elena for bringing the truth to light while also being considerate of the potential repercussions. As Elena read the heartfelt message, she felt a sense of peace settle over her. The decision to withhold some information had been difficult, but this email confirmed that they had struck the right balance. They had honored the truth of history while also considering the complexities of the present. The K-219 incident had emerged from the depths of the ocean to challenge humanity's understanding of its own past. And while some secrets still remained beneath the surface, the truth that had been revealed was already changing the world in profound ways. Elena closed her laptop, feeling the weight of history and the promise of the future. The full story of the K-219 would be told in time. For now, the world had been given a glimpse into the abyss it had narrowly avoided, and a reminder of the courage of those who had steered humanity back from the brink.
Disclaimer: this channel does not support or tolerate any form of discrimination, racism, prejudice, or violation of human rights. The stories presented here are original and created by the author with the aim of promoting reflection, awareness, and dialogue. All content is developed with respect for diversity and the dignity of all people.